I've planned weddings for over a decade. I've dealt with last-minute cancellations, cold feet, even a groom not showing up. But this one still haunts me. I don't talk about it much because most people wouldn't believe me. But I know what I saw, and I know what happened. The wedding was set at a secluded estate deep in the woods. It was an old property built in the early 1900s, but recently renovated to host weddings. The couple, Mark and Lillian, wanted an intimate ceremony with close friends and family. About 50 guests, all staying on the property for the weekend. Everything was supposed to be perfect. I arrived 2 days before the wedding to make sure everything was in order. The staff at the venue were friendly but quiet. They didn't speak much unless spoken to. When I asked the property manager about the estate's history, he gave vague answers, brushing off my curiosity. Old buildings have old stories, he said. That was all he told me. The night before the wedding, I did my usual rounds, checking the decorations and finalizing the setup. The ballroom was being prepared for the reception, and the ceremony space was nearly complete. That's when I saw her, Lillian. She was standing in the middle of the aisle, wearing a long white dress. Not her wedding gown, but something older, almost antique looking. Her back was to me, and she wasn't moving. I was about to call out to her when one of the bridesmaids walked in. I glanced at her for just a second, and when I looked back, Lillian was gone. I walked down the aisle, looked around, checked the side doors. Nothing. It was as if she had never been there. I chalked it up to exhaustion. I'd had long days before, and stress can do weird things to your mind. I went to my room, got some rest, and prepared for the next day. The wedding morning was smooth. Lillian and her bridesmaids were in the bridal suite getting ready. Mark was with his groomsmen. The guests arrived on time, everyone excited. By evening, the ceremony was set to begin. The music played, the guests stood, Mark waited at the altar. The doors opened and Lillian walked in, her wedding gown flowing behind her. I watched as she moved down the aisle, her expression calm, almost too calm. Something about the way she walked felt off. Her movements were slow, deliberate, unnatural. But no one else seemed to notice. The ceremony went on, the vows were spoken. Mark slipped the ring onto Lillian's finger. Then the officiant spoke the words, "You may now kiss the bride." Mark leaned in, but before he could kiss her, the candles around the room flickered. A wind inside the closed venue rushed through. The chandelier above us creaked. The wood beneath, our feet groaned. And then Lillian smiled. Not a normal smile. It stretched too wide, her lips curling in a way that didn't seem human. And then she spoke. Not in her voice. Not in anyone's voice. It was a whisper and a growl at the same time. He is mine now. The moment the words left her mouth, the lights went out. Screams, chairs scraping, people panicking. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. Mark was on the floor, gasping for air. The officiant was frozen in place, his face drained of color, and Lillian, she was gone. Not just missing, gone. The dress she had worn was crumpled on the floor, but she was nowhere to be found. The guests ran out. Some searched the grounds, some called the police, but no one could find her. Security checked the cameras, but the footage was useless. It showed the ceremony happening, the guests in their seats, the officiant speaking. But where Lillian should have been, there was nothing. Just an empty space where the bride was supposed to be. The police questioned everyone. No signs of forced entry, no explanation. They took Mark in for questioning, but he had no answers. He kept repeating one thing over and over again. She said she would come back. Days turned into weeks, and Lillian was never found. No body, no clues. It was as if she had never existed. The wedding guests stopped talking about it. The venue shut down a few months later. I stopped planning weddings for a while. Then, about a year later, I got a call from an unknown number. I picked up expecting a spam call, but instead I heard a voice. Soft, whispering, familiar. I told you, he is mine. And then the call ended. I never heard from that number again. I don't plan weddings anymore.